Beautiful friends, please mute yourself because Randa is going to lead us in our song. This is what we did every week on the street, so I feel like it connects us to our time there.
Back up there.
And also,
hit mute.
Okay. Randa, where are you? Oh, there you are. So if we all sing together, even if we're muted, we can kind of get in harmony and get grounded and get in our bodies.
And I put the words in the chat. Most of them you know already, but just, to really nail it here. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Now I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on justice. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on justice. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on justice. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Well, I'm singing and shouting with my mind stayed on freedom. I'm singing, shouting with my mind just stayed on freedom. I'm singing and shouting with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, or justice, yeah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Here we go. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind just stayed on freedom. Oh, woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
It so moves my heart to see you all and kind of hear you in the in my heart, really. Welcome to Tuesdays with Tillis. This is week number 184. We came together after the inauguration to resist the Trump administration and to speak truth to power, namely Senator Tillis. And we've become a community, and we're exploring ever more deeply what that might mean and what that might call each of us and all of us to do together. I'd like to give a nod to all the scientists and doctors today, Dr. Doyle Graham, and the scientists and science fans that are on the climate crisis team who are wearing costumes today. Their hair is on fire. Am I muted still? Have I been muted all the time?
It was just a sudden kink. You got
okay.
Back.
Anyway, notice Sandy, notice Dave, all the people with red hair, and that's because the planet's on fire, and we're going to hear a little bit about that. Also, notice Lady Liberty in the hospital. Lady Liberty, waiting for grand rounds to come. Certainly making grand rounds more interesting for the medical students and doctors than it would be otherwise. Lots of love to her and healing energy. So we're going to be talking about a couple things, a little report on last Thursday's meeting and follow up from last week about Portland. But first, and we're going to be talking a lot about the election. And of course, the most important thing we can probably do for the climate crisis is kick Donald Trump out. I'm sure the team would agree with that. But I'm going to turn this over to Dave Anderson. And thank you all. And I love your hats and your wigs.
Thank you, Karen. It's going to be quick. I have 3 things that I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to do the share screen thing here. And I don't know if people remember this. This was back in the middle of May, but there was an article, some headlines about greenhouse gases, dramatic 17% plunge. Of course, what they didn't say was they were only talking about emissions, not actually the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So I wanted to show this. This is from the Scripps Observatory on the Mauna Loa, Hawaii. They have an observation facility there where they measure carbon dioxide on a daily basis, well, actually almost continuous. And this is the 2-year chart going back to about August of last year. And the concentration goes through this cycle every year. It peaks at the end of May. And then the plants in the northern hemisphere start really growing and they suck the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, and it declines until about October when they go into dormancy again, and then it rises again. And so we have 2 years of that cycle here. And I measure the low points and then the high points and see how they go from year to year. And over the year, the low points increased by 2.8 and the high point increased by 2.4. And this is when the shutdown occurred. And it's really hard to say whether there's any visible impact there or not.
Certainly, is there a graph or chart that we're supposed to be seeing right now?
Yeah, there is. And if you're not seeing it, then I got to figure out why. So let me start over.
We're just seeing your Washington Post headline.
I'm sorry. I want you to see this one next. Do you see this chart?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. So anyway, bottom to bottom and then top to top, I measure those, and they were 2.8 and 2.4. This might be decreased a little bit because of the reductions in emissions during this time frame. It's really hard to say. And then I have one more thing I want to show you, and I want to see if I can get to it and you see it. No. Okay. Let me stop share again so I can find what I want to show you. And it's this thing here. Now I'll go to screen share. And this. Every month, NOAA, do you see this table?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, every month NOAA sends out an update to what they call the state of the climate. And this is for the period of 2020, January to June. It is the second warmest January to June on record, warmer than last year, and second only to 2016. And the difference in the average temperature is 5/100ths of a degree. So we're very close to where 2016 was in terms of peak. The other thing that I would like to point out is the difference between the land and the ocean. The ocean doesn't warm as much as the land does. And you can see that difference here. The land was almost 2 degrees, whereas the ocean was not quite 1 degree in terms of Celsius. So the warming, there's more warming on the land than the ocean. There's more warming in the Arctic than the ocean. That's all I had to say. If anybody has any questions, otherwise it's back to Karen. And Karen,
what can we do about this?
Make sure we vote. Make sure we vote for the right people this fall. That is the biggest impact that we can have in terms of personal actions. I mean, there are many other things you can do, But the biggest is we need to get the people in elected offices all the way from the president on down to the county commissioners to accept this science as fact and to work as diligently and as quickly as we can to decarbonize our economy. So vote, vote, vote.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Before we open this up, I just want to remind everyone that Gary Pierce of the Triangle Talk Show has been putting us live on Facebook, which is just so great, and also on the Triangle Talk Show. So if at any point you say anything that you don't want to have be public, let us know ahead of time and we can stop that for a while. So this brings us to wanting to talk about, we have a few other things to talk about, but let's talk about voting because most of us hopefully are involved in that in various ways. So announcements and questions right now about voting.
This is Doyle. I have a suggestion. One of the things that is scary, of course, is that Trump is going to slow down the delivery of mail so much that he'll really mess up early voting. So the Secretary of State of Michigan was on MSNBC a few nights ago, and she was saying that they have drop boxes all over the state, guarded drop boxes. So you put your mail-in vote in there, and that's a way to get past all of the nonsense about mail. You can't disrupt a drop box system.
Jeff, go ahead.
We don't have those. There are a number of states that have it. Oregon's got them. Even Georgia's getting some of those. We don't have those, but we do have each county board of election offices where those ballots can be brought in before the election, and they also can be dropped off at early voting sites. But you might end up in line that way. But if you take it to the board of elections, you know it gets there. And you don't have to worry about the post office and all of that. And it seems like something that we should kind of be pushing with all of our contacts.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm kind of sold on at least getting an absentee ballot, but we have to stress to everyone that they're going to have to mail it at least 2 weeks before the election.
Right.
And that you can't bring a ballot on election day, an absentee ballot on election day.
I think Jeffrey's point, though, is absolutely ideal. We can all drive to Hillsborough.
Yes, or Durham, or
Durham.
yeah,
Right.
Exactly.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Yeah, good. Yeah, Susan?
This is Becky, and right now the Durham County Board of Elections office has a box of absentee mail-in ballot request forms outside the office, so you can go anytime, day or night, to pick them up.
Oh, that's great. Okay, thanks. Good.
And you can also fill it out, and they have a box so you can drop it in right there. This is the absentee ballot request form.
Okay, Susan?
Where is this?
I think the address is on Main Street, but it's across the street from the First Presbyterian Church. If you're going north on
Durham
Road, in Durham. If you're going north on Roxborough Road, near the old courthouse on the left. You can look online for the address.
The Board of Elections is right near there too.
Yeah, it is at the Board of Elections.
Yeah, okay.
Karen, I just posted in the chat the link to the Wake County Board of Elections website.
Okay.
And there's information there about who can drop it off, where you drop it off, where you can deliver it in. It doesn't mention anything about the early voting sites though, so I don't know how do we find that?
Early voting will start October 15th, I believe. Susan, and then Cecil, and then Vicki.
Yeah, I have a wild theory, and I know it's a little bit of a waste of time and air to say this. I haven't heard this, but I was listening to the Axios interview this morning with Trump and this constant thing about mail-in voting versus, I don't know, out of state, how he distinguishes them. There's no distinction. But that the Democrats and everyone supporting getting him out of office is pushing mail-in voting for safety reasons and because it's our right and things like that. And that the intended outcome from his campaign, because, you know, this is not a guarantee at all for Biden. I know we all agree with that. But the intended outcome is if the people who vote for Biden or against Trump, mail in their ballots, they're going to have to be counted. But if his followers go to these sites without masks and vote, the day after, the strategy, has anyone heard this, that the strategy is for him to be declared the winner because the in-person voting is so much to his advantage, whereas the majority are mailing in ballots. I haven't heard it, but I was...
Okay, a couple other people want to speak, Susan.
Okay.
A couple other people want to speak. And I just want to say that paper cannot be hacked. And in many places, there are electronic voting machines that do not have a paper trail.
Right.
Mail-in voting, it has a paper trail. Yeah, Cecil, you were next.
Yes, my question was regarding dropping off the absentee ballot at early voting sites. And I heard what David said. I know that's correct. I just wondered if anyone had any other information where they could be dropped off at a voting site during early voting.
During early voting, but not on election day, right? Yeah.
Is that confirmed?
That's correct.
Okay.
Early voting is okay. Vicky?
Okay.
I just want to caution us against making an assumption that we can all just drive to Hillsborough or we can all just pick up ballots. It may be easy for some of us, but not for everybody. And my question is, for those of us who do have the ability to get into a car and go someplace, is it permissible for us to pick up absentee ballot for others? Or
no.
Are we restricted to picking up just one? I know that we can't pick them up after they're filled in, but to distribute them, no?
The forms you can pick up. It's just a blank form.
Right, that's what I'm asking. Would we be able to pick up those blank forms and give them to people who aren't able to get there themselves?
Yes.
Okay, so they can mail them.
And then they can mail them in. It has to be your own request form, or you can be a close relative.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
But you can get them online too, very easily. You know that, Vicki, right? You can.
Yeah, if you have easy access to a computer and a printer, and not everybody does.
Right. Okay.
Could we not just print them out though, and
that's what I'm thinking.
Off of the online, we could print them out and distribute
and give them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking about printing out the request form, right? Not the actual ballot. Okay.
Request form. Yeah, Jeffrey.
I want to respond to what Vicki said. You don't have to come to Hillsborough. I mean, those are all available at all of the different Board of Elections. So the Wake County, Chatham County, all those counties should have those. But you're right. I think the easiest thing to do is if you can print them.
Right. Yeah, Lynn.
Would it be better to complete the application for the ballot and then hand deliver the application rather than send that through the mail? Wouldn't that be quicker?
Yes. Yeah, you can hand deliver the application. I just did that last week. And again, they according to the North Carolina Board of Elections, every county should allow you to drop off that directly, and he's actually eventually the ballot as well to the County Board of Elections.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I have a friend who is visually impaired, and she went to the Board of Election in Chatham County and filled out as much as she could, and then they helped her with her driver's license part. And she said, as far as she knows, she's done Thank you.
Darlene.
I thought somebody said last week that we could call the Board of Elections and they would confirm that they had received our application.
That's correct. That's correct. So you could call your county Board of Elections and they can confirm they've received it.
Julie?
You can also go online and it'll give you your whole record for, like, I've gone to look at mine for every year that I've sent in for an absentee ballot. So you can also log in and it'll have a complete record.
Yeah, but not whether, so this year when they changed the rules around absentee ballots, they made it so that you not be able to see online if your absentee ballot request has been received. So the only way to know that it's been received is to call them. And that was done on purpose to try and protect your privacy, because everyone would be scouring those records. That was the fear, and knowing whether you're doing an absentee ballot or not. So absentee ballots you cannot see online, will not say that they've actually received it, unfortunately.
Thank you. Mike Eisenberg.
Yeah, I just called this morning because I hadn't heard anything from them. And it was a short process, a short hold, but they did say they received mine, so that was good news. And I have one other comment that's, it's not a comment, it's I guess it's a comment. Outside of this topic, it'll take a second. Over the weekend, I get updates from PBS on what's showing, and I posted a link to this. They had, based on John Lewis' memory and so fresh in our mind, they posted an American Experience, and I sent the link in the chat, to a show called Freedom Riders. And these people were incredible. So it's there. It's about an hour and 45 minutes if you're interested in watching.
Yeah, great. Also, if you have Amazon Prime, you can see the movie about John Lewis called Good Trouble. Lynn Shapiro.
Hi. It's only capturing a few people, but I carry around the absentee ballot request and some envelopes with the address on it. And yesterday I had a workman in the house and I printed the whole thing out for him, addressed the envelopes and put a stamp on it. And I ask every single person I ever talk to anywhere that I don't know, and they thank me usually like they don't know to do this yet. And so I make it like part of my daily activity to pass that on. Every person.
That's so wonderful. And that's what Vicki was getting at, that we could get a whole lot of those forms and to hand them out with the envelope is a great idea. Great, great. Galia.
Must not be raising my hand right.
There, I'm unmuting. So this is another part of the problem. And I confirmed this in an article I put in the chat. An absentee ballot by law is not tallied until election day. And so
I'm not sure that that's true.
I mean, that's what the Wake County spokesman for the elections board said, and that's what I had heard. So I was looking for confirmation of that.
Yeah, it may vary county by county. I don't know.
It may, I guess, but he says it's by law, so it's probably. So just my friend Robin Davis from Now was reminding me that the Supreme Court cut off the vote for Al Gore not winning in Florida. Yeah. And so they're not going to start counting these like when they're coming in, and there's going to be a ton of them, we hope. And I don't know, it's a concern for me because, they have to have the resources allocated to properly do this and make sure they count the darn things. Don't just get cut off counting them. So it's weird that they're not counting them as they come in. I don't understand that, but.
Okay,
so
yeah, Karen is confirming what you're saying. Mark?
Yeah, so Wake County doesn't officially declare the election results until 3 days after the election. And they do that so that they can count the absentee ballots. So I know the press is all over wanting to make projections about who won the day of, and that all makes great press. And that's probably not going to occur this time around. So it doesn't have to all get done election day.
Well, definitely the most important thing is that we just all vote. Vicky?
Galia's right in her memory of the 2004 election with Gore, and because I was in Florida there doing election protection at the time. And the reason that those absentee ballots didn't get counted is that Gore conceded at 1:00 the next afternoon. And
that won't happen this time.
No. No. But that was why all of those ballots went uncounted in that election.
Thank you. Jeff?
I think that one of the things about the press wanting to announce a victor, I think that what they end up using is necessarily unless it's really close, the actual votes. They've got all these post voting interviews that they use, and so they project on it. And I mean, we're not going to have that this year because there'll be far fewer people to talk to because of so many votes by mail. So I think that the press is probably going to be much more restricted or limited in terms of, declaring winners of states and all of that.
So just one thing is that we all have to prepare everyone we know for the fact that we won't know on election night, or probably not the next day, or for a little while, who won the election, maybe. And stress also that this needs to be a landslide. It really needs to be a landslide. And the most important thing is that we all find a way to vote that works for us. I don't think there's any big right answer going in person or absentee ballot. And also, you all know this, but Trump is going to do anything to undermine this election. Foreign interference, hacking voting machines, every single thing. He really has transferred all of his energy now from governing the country to undermining the election.
Well,
but
he's already started that, right? So, with the interview with the CNN, the Fox News guy, I forget his name. Trump was saying, it could be days until we know what the results are. And he's making that look like that's an automatic trigger that things are all screwed up. And that's not the fact. So again, we just need to be clear with our friends and family of what's really going on so that noise gets canceled out.
I really appreciate all of your questions and comments, and how much we're all working on this. We can come back to it, but I just want to transition a little bit to some follow-up from last week. Jewel and Gary Pierce have worked together to create a beautiful edited 1.5 hour video of Ted talking about what happened in Portland. And we learned so much from what happened in Portland. And you're all aware that as soon as the feds left, we were back to peaceful protests. And we're not out of the woods yet, but the take home, one of them for me, is that those protesters held the line. They showed up every single night. There were more of them every night. And for the most part, they were peaceful. And so last Thursday, there was a second Zoom. And I'm sorry, there was a lot of confusion because there were 3 different Zooms last week and a lot of people were on the wrong Zoom. So I just want to report that was a really great discussion too. On Tuesday, we had 82 people, which was the most that we've ever had for a Tuesday. But there were still over 30 that came on Thursday. And we kind of arrived at these 3 priorities for us right now. And I just want to say what those are. I bet you all agree with it, but I just want to run that by you. The first one is voting and the November election, because every day we see how high the stakes are that we must defeat every Republican in office. And then the second is we really took to heart the lessons from Portland and realized that we have to get ready in case we need Hong Kong style crowds to pour into the streets in November, in case Trump not only decides not to concede, but also decides to stay in the White House. And so what that led to was a discussion about how we really need to train ourselves in nonviolent direct action. And so there's a lot of ways that we might do that, but one of them, Libby has been exploring for us. And Libby, would you mind just talking about that a little bit?
Sure. I think all of us agreed that we already had Ready the Ground, which is an organization that has been doing nonviolent training here in Durham. So they have been trying to figure out how to do nonviolent training online, which is very, very difficult because most of us have been trained already in some form or fashion on nonviolent principles and forming lines and just memorizing and owning people.
We're losing you a little bit.
Okay, let me enter another room. Well, anyway, they are, Karen is going to be the point person, but August the 12th, they are meeting together to decide how in the world they can train online, all of us. So that's where we are now, waiting for their ingenuity and how they're going to do something online. Most of the time, these nonviolent training sessions last a couple days, and they're very intense. So we really need to be committed to doing that. And so we'll wait till then, but in the meantime, and I think, Karen, you can speak to this. Some of you have already read Kazu Haga's book, Kazu Haga's book, Healing Resistance. And we all agreed that, first of all, we need to get ourselves in that same position where we ourselves are peaceful people. And when you run up against a Trumpite or somebody that disagrees with you, how do you respond? We do not need hatred in our hearts. We don't need to be argumentative. How do we get there? And that is a lifelong process because we hold a lot of anger, just like, people on the streets, they're angry. How do we channel that anger into nonviolence? So I think that's it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Libby. I don't know about you, but I kind of felt like something fundamental shifted during John Lewis's funeral. Something happened. I talked to so many people who just sat in their living room and cried through that funeral, watching President Obama and realizing what having a real president, remembering what that was like. And I think that as Reverend Lawson spoke and each person spoke and really evoked what kind of person John Lewis was and how he lived his life, I just felt something within me and around me shift. And so we're in this really complex situation. A lot of very young people out there on the street who we need and who are wonderful. And also those of us who are older, who might be more seasoned and may be able to talk a young person, for example, into not jumping on a car, which will get him arrested for being a felon. And we don't want that to happen to the young people. So I feel like if there are, and I hope there aren't, I hope it doesn't come to this, but if there are 100,000 people on the street, we can be a real, I think, force of peace. And so the second thing that we came to last Thursday was really preparing ourselves for that. Preparing, and I think these discussions are going on all over, preparing ourselves for what might happen if Trump doesn't concede and leave. Does all that make sense? Yeah, Randa?
So I want to just mention Portland versus what you're talking about, or we're talking about, in terms of the election issue. And this was brought to my attention by Jade, and it's nothing new to a number of people on this call. And Elena has talked about it a number of times, which is white people leading the way on a level that is a problem in terms of inclusivity. So I don't know if that's anything we can even begin to discuss, since it's a life's work, all of it, just like Libby just said about nonviolence. But it's a piece of the puzzle, and I just want to throw it in. And someone might even have already written about it on the chat. I just know that in Portland, suddenly there we were looking at white people and some more white people, and it was a Black Lives Matter situation. Yeah, I don't quite have all the words, but in the mix.
Right. Right.
Libby, you're muted.
I unmuted somehow. I agree so much with Randa's comments. And Elena, I think you have been so good about pointing that out. I think, though, us white folks need to be trained to follow also and to listen. Until we get our own hearts right and until we refresh what we've learned, we will follow. And we need to join whatever organizing is being done. This is a fight for, and the young people have set the tone. Now, some of the young people may not have gone through nonviolent training, but I think we need to learn and listen. But that's just some of my comments.
Yeah.
To Randa's point, I would say that I know that I have heard, I don't know for a fact, but I have heard that after or during Portland, there was a push and call for people to redirect, refocus their energies to what started all this. Because in Portland, it was getting away from the Black Lives Matter issue and became an issue about the moms and the veterans and the so-called secret police and everything else but Black Lives Matter. So there has been an effort to try and get people, or to make people realize that we're getting off the topic. And I happened to be listening to NPR, I think it was the day after we had our first Thursday meeting talking about Portland. And they interviewed one of the moms who was a Portland mom in that group. And I don't remember everything she said, but couple of things that she said did stick with me. And one of them was they listened to the leaders of the Portland rallies and do what's asked by the Portland rally leaders. And I guess it's easier enough to figure out who they are, so you're not getting different information from different people. And she said if they say they need a busload of moms, they only get a busload of moms. If they need 10 busloads of moms, that's what they get. They give them whatever and then she said, if they ask us to leave or not come, we leave or don't go. So that's the way they have been able to manage it and make sure that it doesn't get out of control. And the last thing I would say is that this infusion of the so-called secret police is probably just another distraction more than it is supposed to do anything, because we know that that's what stupid in the White House's game is.
Thank you so much. And I know part of the discussion in Portland was around keeping people safe. That some of the Black women felt that the white women were not keeping them safe. We just have to keep unlearning all these habits of domination that we learned, some of us, so well from our culture. Yeah, Lib.
So, illustrating what you just said and being white, I was wondering what it would be like to have a vigil at a certain time of day every day where we took the knee. And for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. But I'm white. I'm made that suggestion. I have no idea whether that, I know there's a group on this call, I think, that goes in their driveway and holds signs every day or every week. So just sort of, in terms of communication and nonviolent communication with people of color, I value your judgment on this initiative.
Karen, when I.
Okay, Galia. Yeah.
I mean, I know there were some issues with it, but I do think that the visuals of the Wall of Moms and the veterans made a huge difference in public opinion and helped make him go away.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the support for the protesters was, I do think it made a huge difference. So I know there were some problems with people not feeling like they were there they weren't willing to get arrested, some of them, but they did also suffer abuse and make a difference in that fight.
Yeah.
So, and thank goodness, and give people pride, so.
Thank you. Yeah. I think if you've been paying attention to stuff like the Women's March, when you have a lot of different people coming together, we're always it's going to be messy, and that's good. And we just have to keep listening to each other and doing our own inner work. So that's good. So anyway, I wanted to also say that we need to not lose track of the fact that the eviction moratorium nationally is about to expire. That's my understanding. And that we need to really look at that in terms of our individual counties, what's happening with eviction, what's happening with utility shutoffs. And as you know, the Republican Senate is still dithering around. They just can't legislate themselves out of a paper bag. And it's become clearer and clear that passing the HEROES Act is urgent. And I don't know what will happen. In a normal administration, the president would be negotiating directly with the Speaker of the House. And we need to just keep noticing how incredibly abnormal it is that the president will not, he's on the golf course, so how he can negotiate with anyone. So continuing to pressure our senators and McConnell, Moscow Mitch, is really important right now because we have millions, tens of millions of Americans that are about to just be homeless and hungry and desperate. So, if they're evicted, they won't be able to vote.
That's the thing. That's the thing.
That's a problem for so many reasons. Yeah, Cecil.
What was the third area of agreement that you're talking about? Voting and mass demonstration. There was a third. Yeah.
So voting and nonviolent training individually and collectively, nonviolence, direct action, the kind of thing that that John Lewis did so many times. And then the third thing is keeping pressure on our elected officials.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that includes, that includes ridiculing them on Twitter, which some of us are having a lot of fun doing, because the ads that Trump and the GOP are putting out are just so ridiculous. Yeah, go ahead, Darlene.
I was on the Moral Mondays with Reverend Barber yesterday, and I believe the whole point of that was to get people to just swamp McConnell's telephone with calls to to basically get the HEROES Act passed, but to get him off his rear end and do something. So make your calls to Mitch McConnell's office.
And also Tillis and Burr, of course. Right. Yeah, Suzanne, Amy, you've had your hands up for a while, I think. Do you still want to talk?
Yeah, did any of you get a call from Tom Tillis saying that he was having a telephone town hall? This was about 5 minutes, I think, before it was supposed to start. Anyway, we listened to the message. I didn't go on to the town hall, but if any of you have had, I guess, listened to his telephone town halls before, it's all orchestrated. He takes the questions that he wants to answer, and so I just wondered if it was a select group of people or if everybody got that.
Anyone else ever get? No, I would say if he ever calls you, you might want to be on the call, even though it's really nauseating. You might have a better chance of having your questions answered. But
I did get one a couple of months ago, and my wife Mamata got one the other day.
Okay.
Karen, I
Yes.
wanted to say that I attended the first public hearing for the racial equity task force that Josh Stein and Anita Earls are on that task force. And one of the things we can do, which is, a real dedicated thing, is to go to things like that, because I know that one person spoke up about the young woman who is facing redoubled charges for voting illegally because she was a felon. And that several other cases were brought before for this justice task force. But I attend the Wake County Commission meetings and the Planning Commission for the city of Raleigh, because I live in Raleigh, and also the city council meetings. The Wake Commission has just put out a pretty comprehensive plan to help people who are getting evicted in housing using the care money. But I'm really worried in Raleigh because while they say they want affordable housing, they're really that big stadium in South Raleigh is coming up. They said they would have plans by September, and because it's all by Zoom, people don't hear about the meetings. So I'm happy to post that because I'll be there, but it's pretty boring to sit there all morning on Tuesdays into the late evening because they go really late. So, but that's a real duty. When you have your eye on them, they realize who's there.
Yes.
And they'll do better. So
good.
But that justice task force is going to do a good job, I think.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
Yeah, Karen, it's Mark. I mentioned this at the start of the meeting. So I don't know how we do this, but I'm thinking that there are going to be long lines during early voting and voting election day. And I don't know if we can build a coalition with some of our peer groups, but how could we provide some support? So, maybe provide water for people standing in lines, because I think they're going to get pretty long. And it's going to take a while for people to get through the voting process because of COVID and distancing and et cetera. So, I think we need to start brainstorming how we're going to support the elections, just from the people that are going to be standing there waiting. And I just don't want people to get disenfranchised because they're standing there for an hour or 2 or 3, I don't know, right? Like they did up in Michigan. So we need to make sure that if we can coordinate something, that we're getting that planning going.
I think a really good way to do that is through our individual precincts. Because they're already signing people up to, always have somebody there. And so to offer other kinds of support might be best done through the precinct. But also remember vote protectors. Democracy NC does vote protectors. Yeah, Bessie.
I would just like to circle back to what Gail said about the protesters making a difference in the street. And the lady I was talking about who was interviewed on NPR, she did say that she felt like what they were doing made a huge difference because they approached it from the vantage point of they were there to take care of people just as they would any other child that was in trouble, not necessarily their own, but any child who was in trouble, falling off a bike or, in a swimming pool and not able to swim. That's the way she approached it and felt like she was there as a protector and that she was willing to do whatever she needed to do, even lay down her life if necessary, because it was that important. So it absolutely made a difference. And I probably would just cry now if I could hear her after the success of what they did. It made them leave. So just to reinforce what Gail said, that she thinks it made a difference. According to this lady, it absolutely made a difference.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. One thing that we haven't mentioned that I just want to bring to the surface is that all of Trump's successful attempts to divide people and to get people to turn on other people really served Vladimir Putin very well. The virus being so out of control that it's destroying our economy serves Vladimir Putin. Every single foreign policy decision, and I'm just amazed that the GOP Senate has failed to. What is that about? Yeah, Pat.
The other thing that serves Vladimir Putin is the withdrawal of 12,000 U.S. troops from Germany.
Yeah,
it indicates it's a slap in the face to our ally, whom Trump has alienated. It involves a reduction of our commitment to NATO, and it's exactly what Putin wants.
Yeah, and lately when I call Senator Burr's office, I keep harping on that. Yeah, a lot of things to harp on with these people.
So, if I may mention one other thing for the protests in Portland, Ayelet was saying on, Facebook with some other friends of mine, like basically when she goes to stuff, she thinks about the visuals. And so when she's going to speak at an event, she's dressed nice with her, pearls and stuff. So she looks like a middle-aged mom, so that if anybody would arrest her or hurt her, it would look bad for them. And that's kind of the thing with the wall of moms being there, is like you're attacking middle-aged women that are, just there to protect. And it looks bad for Trump. And that's something to consider in all of our protests, is just, kind of dramatic effects. So anyway.
Thank you. So we just have a few minutes left, and we haven't really talked about the virus. Doyle, I haven't asked you ahead of time to speak, but we only have about 2 minutes left anyway before we do the closing song. But can you just pipe up your take on what's happening with the virus?
Well, I think that all the denial that took place at the encouragement of Trump is now bearing rotten fruit. I think that the red states now have just been inundated with the virus. And I think the really tragic thing that's happened in this country has been that the scientists are not being listened to. They just don't have, Fauci and Burke, get progressively squeezed out. And that there are actually people who will listen to Trump go on and on about hydroxychloroquine. It's just absurd. So I think we're in for a really rough time. I think about my grandchildren and how hard it is to be with them, and I think this is another year, 2 years, before we're going to be past this, and we just got to get in on, adjusting to that and making the best of it that we can. But going back to what's been said, we simply have to win in November. There's just no way out of this. The craziness of this administration just is phenomenal. We just cannot stand this anymore.
Thank you. Perfectly said. Thank you so much. Okay. Let's have the closing song and then the closing by Susan.
Okay, and Karen, do I have share screen?
You do?
We sure hope we'll vote.
Hey, Karen, it doesn't look like I do.
Uh-oh.
Okay, there we go.
Oh. Thank you, Randa. If you don't like who's in there, vote 'em out. That's what election day is all about. Yeah, the superpower we got is called ballot box. If you don't like who's in there, vote 'em out. Vote 'em out. Vote 'em out. When they're gone, singing, dance, and shout. Like who's in there, vote 'em out. 420 never mattered quite like this. The Senate is a swamp that serves a graft. Get the White House sanitized. That nasty virus Trump must be voted out. Yeah, and when they're gone, we'll sing and dance. The great ones sing, and they'll find us so again. If you don't like who's in there, vote 'em out. Yeah, we're in the streets and we are so Putin and Trump are boyfriends much too long. Restore the rule of law. Lift up our cries of truth and vote 'em out. Vote 'em out. Yeah, vote 'em out. I want to hold your hand and yeah, we'll twist and shout. We'll bring some great ones in. Yeah, they'll find us again. If you don't like who's in there, vote 'em out. If you don't like who's in there, vote 'em out. Or drag him out, whatever is necessary. I'd be happy to go with anyone to Washington to drag him out of the White House on January 20th. But voting would be the preferable method. Just simply walking away with normal.
I'm envisioning singing him out. serenading with this chorus. Thank you, Michael. Wow. Gosh, we are, I'm just so grateful for this time together. You know, some of you may have seen a picture this morning from Oak Island, a very powerful picture. I'll post a link to it. It's a picture of the flag, American flag, literally torn in two, right down horizontally. So it just is totally divided. And what a symbol that is of these times, how divided we are in so many ways, as we've discussed. But our hearts do go out to the coastal areas and all the poor and suffering, those who are suffering there, the ill, those who feel the impact of such storms most deeply, always. Back to where we started this meeting with the climate emergency we're in, the rising waters, floods. Sometimes it feels there's so many emergencies going on simultaneously. So many fires to put out, it's hard to keep up. It's hard to know what to do. But we gather here to mend the flag, to get out our thread, to keep each other safe, get each other to the other side, to find new threads in this safe place where we can hold each other accountable, challenge each other to envision a new way of being together and of creating the country we dream of, where there is truly liberty for all. We gather here to reclaim the power that's gone out, to turn the lights back on, to flood the phone lines and the ballot boxes and the streets if we need to. That's what it's going to take to mend that flag. So pick up your thread, hold on to it, and let's get about the work of mending. Pick up your thread of justice and freedom, and let's get to it.
And as you hold your thread, unmute yourself. Everybody unmute. Forward together.
Not one step back.
Forward together.
Not one step back.
Forward together.
Not one step back.
Nice shirt, Lib.
Friends of the earth.
My shirt.
Yes.
Nice.
Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Karen,
Love you.
Are we meeting on Thursday?
No. Just next Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm leaving.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Come back.